Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome on the stage Marie-Aline Meliyi, TF1 news anchor, and Anna Filipova, journalist, filmmaker, and researcher. She was also the Women's Forum Rising Talent for 2018. Now, Anna is going to introduce the session, Time to Act, Women on Climate, Nature and Biodiversity. But before then, I've got to have a little chat with all the audience around the world who are joining us online. If you're there online, hello and welcome from Paris. I hope you're still with us. I'd now like you to take a 5-minute break, okay? Go away, 5 minutes, have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, just listen, process, take in what you've heard so far, but please take a 5-minute break. Thank you. And I'll introduce you back online in 5 minutes. For those of you here in the room, don't go anywhere, and it gives me a great pleasure to now welcome Marie-Aline and Anna onto the stage.
Thank you so much. So welcome to our session. Thank you for being with us. The goal here this morning is to learn from women leaders who work in different fields and who are racing to take a stand for climate regulation and policy. And we decide to start with you, Anna Filipova. You can applaud her because she did an amazing work. We decided to start with you because your engagement on protecting the planet and biodiversity is very strong. You are a filmmaker, award-winning journalist, you are based in the Arctic, and you are specialized on environmental and scientific topics. We are going to see a movie, a glimpse of your work about polar bears, because you followed researchers who work on polar bears with the Norwegian Polar Institute. But first, I wanted to ask you a personal question. Why did you decide to dedicate your life, your career, to climate-related issues?
So this interest and passion has grown over time. It's been over a decade, 12 years to be precise. The Arctic is a place with such extreme conditions, and the research that has been done there help us to track the environmental changes on the planet Earth. For me, it's very important to convey the environmental changes through my work. And I'm especially concerned because what happens in the Arctic will ultimately affect us all. And especially my home is the Arctic, so it's a special place for me, and I would like to preserve and protect it.
Yeah, but it is very brave what you are doing. Is it hard as a woman to work in a male-dominated area?
Absolutely. It's like Arctic, like everywhere else, it's important once to have a healthy boundaries. But I do see that in the field, women are not represented at all, especially in leadership positions where the decisions and change is made. I'm usually one of the only women on the field, and I hope there is a change because it's important to realize the influence we have on the next generation. So we need to raise the voice of women, and I'm very proud that one of the projects I did last year on the biggest ground satellite station on the planet was also selected as Project of the Year by the New York Times. And I managed to put women on front page from an industry that we don't see any women at all. So women's voices needs to be elevated.
What is the purpose of your documentary?
The purpose is to raise awareness. The Barents Sea polar bears, where I film, they're in Svalbard. They have experienced the fastest sea ice loss compared to all the rest of the Arctic, like Greenland, Canada, Russia, and US. And it's predicted in the next 10 years they're going to struggle even further. And it's important to share what's it's been done, and I'm especially proud that I was able to do this work because it hasn't been done before, and in this type of way, to go to the scientists and be next to the polar bears while they're being studied. As a woman, it's even harder to get this type of opportunity, so I'm really grateful, especially because it's quite a dangerous job in this type of environment.
And why did you decide to focus on the Arctic?
So this came from my first project. It was 12 years ago, and I was in North Greenland, and it was my first time where I was fully immersed in this environment, this extreme environment. I was with 2 Inuit hunters, and we had to cross the sea ice, and I had to learn skills such as dog sledge and how to use rifle because there was polar bears. And I was fascinated. I felt I'm in my element and I will be thriving. So the rest is the history.
And how long do you expect to continue your work in those extreme conditions?
For you it's extreme. For me, it's really a place, my home place. So it's a fascinating place to live. I actually arrived yesterday from the Arctic, and unfortunately we have been having very warm weather. Last year in November it's about -15, -20. Now it's +5, and it has been raining for the last couple of weeks, and I have never seen this for the last past 10 years.
And for you it's your normal condition. Thank you very much, Anna Filipova. I think you can applaud her again.
Thank you.
Now let's welcome on stage and applaud 4 women leaders. Anne Rigail, CEO of Air France. We can welcome her. Anne Rigail, who has been directing the company. Oh, it's Sandra Chabrier-Breil, CEO of Aximum. You can sit here. Anne Rigail, CEO of Air France. Florence Lustman, President of France Assureurs. And Charlotte Roule, you can come here in the middle, Group Chief Strategy Officer at Engie. Thank you for being here. You have mics, you know, on the tables. Yeah, it will be useful. Thank you for being with us this morning. You know, the world is trying to find realistic solutions against global warming, and we all have a role to play in this fight. And, you know, the global thing today, for the today's sessions, is time to act. This is the reason why it is really important for us to hear from you, business women, with concrete actions, concrete solutions. All 4 of you have decided to advance the agenda on climate change, but the ways, the answer won't be the same depending on your fields, obviously. So the first question from a personal point of view is, to what extent have you been committed to fighting against climate change throughout your career and in your current position? Who wants to start? Maybe Sandra, because when we were preparing these discussions, you told me that there is a sense of urgency.
Yes, really there is a sense of urgency, and of course we need to stay mobilized, but in the same time we need to stay optimistic. I grew up in Réunion Island, a little bit far away from Anna's environment.
Yes.
And a long time ago, all the fishes and turtles disappear due to all the wasted water pollution. And with all the commitment of authorities, citizens, and so on, few years later, all turtles and fishes were back in the lagoon. So when there is a will, we can say that there is a way. And this is where I think that with a strong determination and a scientific approach, of course, we can change and we can start to make things happen. Especially, for example, in Colas, we start to recycle all our aggregate a very long time ago, because it was even before I was born, so it's a very, very long decade.
No, it was yesterday.
A little bit longer, unfortunately. And I have to confess as well that when we wanted to launch our CSR program, which is called Act and Commit Together, we didn't face any reluctance, but really a very strong enthusiasm of all our employees, but our customers as well, and not only in France, but in the 50 countries where we are established. So it's really a very powerful leverage.
Impressive. And Rigail?
Yes. I must say, when I joined Air France, like most of Air France employees, I have done it with passion for travel, discovering the world diversity, complexity. And at the time, we were not, because I'm not very young, we were not aware at all of the environmental impacts of our activities. So I started to gain knowledge about 15 years ago, strongly pushed by my family, and I became aware of the impact of our industry. And once you become aware of the environmental challenges, you need to act. There is no way back. Did I face any reluctancy in our actions? Not internally. As many of you, we deployed the climate fresk, and everyone is really enthusiastic to deploy a lot of actions on our decarbonation roadmap. But I will give you an example that shows that whatever action you implement, you will face divergent expectation and pushbacks. In early 2020, with the COVID crisis, we committed to the French government to stop all the routes, point-to-point domestic routes from, for example, Orly to Nantes, to Lyon, to Bordeaux, because there was an alternative by train of less than 2 hours and 30 minutes. We then had a strong pushback from some customers because they had less choice. Strong pushback from elected representatives. At the moment, the issue is also a topic at the EU regulation level to see if the French law that was adopted is valid or not. So what we can see is that you can't make unanimity, but you have to act anyway.
I'm very interested to see where the pushbacks come from. Yeah, sometimes it could be surprising.
A bit schizophrenic, yeah.
Yes. Florence.
Yes, I for oneself started my career in insurance. And why insurance? Because I was fascinated by risk. And when you are in the insurance sector, you've been dealing with risk for years, with natural catastrophes, for example, that are dramatically increasing for a number of years and even decades now. So for us, the management of risk is forecasting, it's mapping, it's analyzing, and finally, it's also repairing. And today, all the prospective risk reports will tell you that the biggest risk for the future is the climate change. And as insurers, we have basic and very important levies to deal with climate change. And let me just give you 2 examples of what we're currently doing. First, the core business of insurance is, of course, to provide a safety net for all of you in your private or professional lives. But doing so, in fact, what we do, finally, is repairing the world, repairing cars, repairing buildings, repairing even your health somehow. And when we rebuild and repair in a more resilient way. And we have a very strong commitment with government at the moment in order to foster the development of green repairing networks, because we believe in a circular economy, and that circular economy definitely needs to be developed. The second example is investment. In fact, with the money which is entrusted by you, by the policyholders, we invest that money, we invest in safe and profitable investments, but doing so, we cannot forget the elements regarding natural hazards, for example. So we are very keen to look for investments that match with our ISR strategy and policies. And we've been doing that for years now, for decades even. And as a result of that, it's less than 0.6% of our global assets which are invested in coal, and less than 1.2% which are invested in oil and gas.
Charlotte Roule, what do you want to share? Yeah, we can upload the efforts and the actions.
Yes, thank you very much. So just sharing with you, I work in the energy sector, and I've chosen to do so because it was important to me as a common good, I would say, with respect to energy. And in the way the fight against climate change has become more and more a no-brainer. There is no question anymore in the energy sector. I'm now in charge of strategy for Engie, so it is at the heart of my job, definitely. And you were asking also about potential reluctancy or difficulties that we were facing while implementing that kind of transition, because it's a transition and it comes with efforts as well. I think we need to be clear on that. But actually, until last year, I was based in China, and even there, I didn't face reluctancy. There might have been, challenges, obviously, and the country is very focusing on coal to produce electricity. But at the end of the day, there is also a great awareness of what pollutions, climate change mean, and there is a big push for renewable. That's the first point. Second example I wanted to give is rather a challenge for us right now in Europe. Because of the energy crisis, although we are, I think, all very much convinced about the necessity, the need for energy transition, we are focusing a lot, and rightly so, on security of supply and affordability, which makes the link with my first point about common good. This comes hand in hand and shall come hand in hand with energy transition and the fight against climate change. Let's not oppose them. And that's one of the challenge, and actually we are quite convincing people right now. It works, but we have a lot to do, definitely.
Sandra, did you face any reluctance when you decided to implement some specific measures in your company?
No, we didn't face any reluctance, neither in France, neither in the other companies. Not internally, and not even with our customer. Customers are really appreciated what we are developing. And today, when we want to invest in a new equipment, in a new product, of course, it's assessed according to the TRI and according to financial criteria, but not only according to the carbon criteria and carbon footprint as well, and on the equally level, in fact.
Okay. To be more precise and for a more corporate perspective, which measures did you take in order to accelerate the fight against global warming in your company?
In Colas Group and especially in Aximum, I will give two examples. we we decided to use only electrical vehicles. So sometimes it's a little bit hard when it's your car, but not only the electrical vehicle, but all electrical equipment when the technology exists, because as we say, we need to have a strong investment in the techno as well. And the major decision was taken was to reduce by 30% all our carbon emission by 2030. So right now we have a full carbon calculation which is done every year. Of course, we are assessed on it, on exactly as on our financial criteria. And we develop specific product. I will just give another example, what we call Cool Roof. It's painting which can be applied on the roof. And thanks to this painting, you can reduce by 5 degrees all the temperature inside the building. So, of course, you will save energy, you will save cooling system. And at the end of the day, it will be efficient because you will consume less raw material and less energy.
Is it more expensive?
Not really, because when you take everything into account, it's even the balance is positive, because right now all the retail start to jump in. So they did their math, and definitely after 2 years, they can find that it's cheapest.
It's important to stress out this
Yes.
point.
And it's cheapest, and in addition, when you want to apply it in France, it's made in France, so you don't have to import it.
Yeah, another good reason. Charlotte Roule.
Actually, for us, it's a whole transformation, and we are going through it. So how do we work on that? How do we fight climate change? Is that we commit, including publicly, and we deliver. First point, obviously, is that we committed to become net zero by 2045. And that means that actually we are exiting coal. So you were mentioning coal, so we are exiting coal. So in Europe, that's 2025, and worldwide we will exit completely from 2027. And that's important to mention this timeline, because we cannot go out without giving another solution. We are producing power, so we need to replace by something else. Second, and this goes with the first point, we develop massively renewable power production, so that will be 50 gigawatt by 2025, 80 gigawatt by 2030, and we are on track to deliver that, and that's important to follow the progress, not to, if you like, leave the pace just derailing. We want to deliver. And third point, we are working on greening gas, because there are some sectors that will be hard to abate in terms of emissions. So we cannot say that electrification will be the solution for everything. So we work on green hydrogen, we work on biomethane, and that's quite important. Second point I wanted to mention, if you allow me, that's about internal transformation. As every company, we have budget and midterm plan, so we follow on a multi-year basis that kind of a financial commitment. But what we set up is now a CO2 emission budget and CO2 emission midterm plan. That means that all the projects we are working on, the investment that we may do, they are assessed against this criteria, against this budget and midterm plan. And that means also that bonus are assessed against this. And actually that's quite powerful to have that kind of tools.
Florence Lustman.
Yes, for us, the core of adaptation to climate change lays in 3 words. It's knowledge, it's prevention, and it's innovation. Knowledge, because if you want to manage risks, then you have to know the risk, to study it. And for more than 20 years, for example, we have established a specific entity which studies natural disasters, natural risk. But it's not only just a scientific work, but they also produce some very practical services for our policyholders. For example, if you just enter your address, you will have access to the most probable natural hazards that you might be facing in your neighborhood. Second, prevention. Prevention is key. And in fact, all surveys show that today, in this country at least, more than 80% of the population is really aware of the increase of climate change-related risks. Natural catastrophes are everywhere. People are aware. But when you ask them, did you take any practical measure to protect yourself, to protect your home, to protect the persons, for example, it's less than half of them, less than 40%, who have really taken action. So there is a gap to be filled between the intention and what people are really doing today. And we are in a process of helping both our fellow citizens, but also businesses to cope with these natural catastrophes which are linked to climate change. And third, innovation. Innovation, because we should not be too much pessimistic, as you said, because there are solutions, and technology and innovation and science are here to provide solutions to mitigate this risk, which is linked to climate change. So we have a web TV, and we participate to the CatNat Innovation Web TV, which puts light on a number of innovation, and each month you have a new technical innovation which is promoted. It can be an app that is going to forecast the storms, but very precisely. This is very important for agriculture, for example. It can be also technical solutions, because with the succession of droughts, in our country, the houses are exposed to the phenomenon of shrinkage and swelling, which means that there are cracks which appear in the walls of the houses. And this is terrible, of course, for the owners of the houses. And there are today experiments about solutions in order to cope with this difficulty. So, as you can see, there is science, there is innovation, but there is also a lot of practical outfits.
Florence, you are going to say that I'm obsessed with cost, but you know, are your contracts more expensive because they include those risks, and do your clients accept it?
Well, in fact, thank you for that question. Thank you so much. In fact, we are very lucky in this country, in France, because we have a specific natural catastrophe scheme, which is a public-private scheme, which provides coverage for all citizens, provided that you have motor insurance or home insurance. And for something around 25 euros per year, you are covered against the consequences of natural catastrophes on the territory. So this is very valuable. And I'm coming back from Sharm el-Sheikh, from the COP, and I can tell you that when you explained that system broadly, a lot of countries would love to have that sort of system. It's far from being perfect. It can be it can be improved, of course, but we are pretty lucky to have that. And this is thanks to a partnership between government and the insurance sector.
So sometimes we can be proud of our French model.
We should be. We definitely should be.
And in your field, it is harder to reduce carbon footprint. So which measure did you take and are still taking to fight global warming?
Maybe before coming to the measures, the first thing is to set some clear goals. And goals that are not only long-term goals, rather short-term goals for us, and also ambitious goals given the urgency. So we took the commitment based on science-based target validation to reduce our carbon intensity by 30% by 2030 compared to the year reference of 2019. So it's a strong acceleration for us, even if we have already reduced our footprint in absolute value since 2005. So, and as you said it, we are maybe one of the hardest to abate sector. So we have to tackle and to to put into action every lever that are currently available. What are those levers? First, accelerating our fleet renewal, and despite the fact that we are exiting the hardest crisis of our history, and that we were really finally hit, we are spending €1 billion per year to renew our fleet with aircraft that are consuming 25% less fuel. Of course, we are engaging our staff, and our pilots are totally committed to optimize their trajectory, optimize their speed to really lower the consumption. It's not enough. The new thing is we are beginning to switch our energy source and to use, we've begun this year, to use sustainable fuel, sustainable fuel for aviation. So those kind of fuel are just beginning to be really used. I would not have imagined 2 years ago that we could have off-takes agreements with energy provider of 1.6 million tons of sustainable fuel. I would not imagine that it could. Maybe it has to be quicker, but it's really fast on this side. We're hoping that we will be able to reach more than 10% by 2030. We count on French energy providers to help us on this, and we count also on our customers because the cost of those sustainable fuels is huge. It's more than 4 times more expensive than conventional fuel. So we need to pass the cost also to our customers. We already signed more than 80 SAF agreements, sustainable fuel agreements, with our corporate customers, because they can also deduct the negative impact on their own carbon footprint. So it helps them on their own SBTi commitments. We also offer our individual customers to take some sustainable fuels for their own individual travels, and it's beginning to work quite rapidly. So we really hope that our customer will help us to change the energy sourcing very quickly.
And you raised a very important issue, because we all have a role to play in this fight against global warming. Do you think that customers are ready to spend more on their tickets in order to protect the planet? Because it's easy to say, oh, I'm ready to protect the planet, and then when you have to pay, sometimes
For sure.
it's harder.
I think for business customers, for corporate customers, their own organization are committed to environmental goals. I think 76% of our corporate customers are committed to SBTi. So, and one of the first action usually is to reduce the carbon footprint of their business travels. And they have to travel sometimes for business. So they are committed to buy sustainable fuel to reduce, and it's directly deducted from their own carbon footprint. That's the beauty of it. For individual customers, it's probably, it will be less quick, but we can see, and we are adapting our sustainable offers at the moment. If you book a ticket, you will have different proposals. And I think the global awareness is raising, and that more and more of our customers are really ready to think of their travel and to think of how they can reduce their impact. And the lever at the moment, because we know that the electric aircraft and the hydrogen aircraft are not for next year. We hope we will have some, but probably in around 2035, so it's not ready yet. The real lever is to buy sustainable fuel.
You know, Anne, you are a CEO, so money is an issue for you. Are you losing money with those new measures, more respectful?
It's difficult to say that we are losing money. I think if we don't strongly reduce our emissions, we won't survive, and we won't bring the benefits of our industry for future generations. So it's not a question of losing money. It's more how can we incorporate the heavy investment we have to make on the fleet. The cost of this sustainable fuel, if we look at everything we have to add at Air France KLM level, by 2030, it's, I think, €4 billion more cost per year. So how do you integrate it in your business model? So that's really a strategic question.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, those are concrete actions. For our audience, can you give us one key recommendation that maybe some of us could use in their organizations, in their companies? Sandra?
I will just say one word because, in fact, it's something I apply since the beginning. It's just to dare. Don't be afraid of the future. Don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to try. Jump in and really dare, because, of course, there is a sense of urgency, as we said at the beginning, but it could be as well a fantastic field of opportunities. So there. And now it's time to act.
Charlotte?
Well, quite similarly, be demanding and be practical. You may have to partner. We spoke about innovation, we spoke about transportation and energy, but most of all, you need to clarify where you are, where you want to go, and have intermediary targets that you actually deliver. So monitor, check where you are, check your progress, go on. That's time.
Florence?
Yes, I would just say one word. It's help us to increase risk culture across society.
But before giving the last word to Anne, when we hear you, you have concrete solutions, concrete actions, and it seems almost simple. So where do the pushbacks come from? Our politicians?
It may seem simple,
yeah.
But the magnitude is huge. That's where we have to act together. I mean, you mentioned it about sustainable aviation fuels. We are starting, it is progressing, but it's enormous. It's about changing everything. It's about transforming our whole society and worldwide, because the challenge is worldwide. So yes, the good news is that we do have solutions. We are ready to deliver, and we already started delivering, but we need to go much faster and much stronger all together.
Anne?
My tip won't be very original, and sorry for this, but I think it's important. I think we have to engage all our staff, and that we have to learn to understand what is at stake, to understand the scientific facts. That's why our commitments are based on science. I think the change, not all the change, but most of the change will come from the companies itself, and we have to engage all the staff. We didn't have the chance from my generation to learn at school the environmental impacts. In a company, you will have young people that they enter, they are aware. You will have older generation, and we really have to have a common science-based knowledge about those things to engage everyone inside our companies.
Thank you very much. It was really interesting, and we can applaud them. Anne Rigail, CEO of Air France, Sandra Chabrier-Breil Martin, CEO of Aximum, Florence Lustman, President of France Assureurs, and Charlotte Roule, Group Chief Strategy Officer at Engie. Thank you very much.